welcome into the program. This is your game plan for retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning with your money, for your investment, financial, and retirement future. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. We always appreciate his guidance here on the program. Chris McIntire, once again joining us, kicking us off with a fresh new year. And Chris, we do always appreciate the guidance, but a lot of people are thinking more about their money around this time of year, setting goals for what they want to achieve and accomplish into the year to come. I'm sure that you stay busy this time of year with people trying to get those plans together.
Yeah, we sure do. There's never really any lull. I guess we probably get a rush right there at the end of the year is probably the big one with required minimum distributions and, holidays being in different parts of the week, certainly throw off the sync of the calendar. So we're kind of happy to be back into that routine. And I think most people are, right? We get used to being in routines and, that's why it's such a good time to start something different, right? What do they say? It takes 21 days to make something a habit. So, as people start their exercise routines or something like that here for one of their goals for 2024 to stay healthy, they may want to say financially healthy as well. So they say, all right, well, we're going to start paying some debt down. We're going to start saving more money. And, I think what we would probably talk about here today is, look, set obtainable goals, something you can reach, start easy and work your way up. Don't try to overwhelm yourself and then end up in disappointment.
Yeah. And Chris, we know we've talked about on the program, you are a physical fitness guy. You have always really focused on being as healthy as possible. But we know, and we've talked about, it takes more than reading physical fitness books in order for us to get in shape. We've got to actually do the work. And then you've talked about how what we do in the kitchen matters as much as what we do in the gym, and finance is very much the same way. It takes more than reading on them or just thinking about them. And then it's two sides, right? We've got to really look at budgeting and expenses and slim down where we can and control things on one side in order to help us achieve our goals on the other side of saving and investing more.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And those of us that have kitchens and sweet tooths, the holidays are certainly a tough time of year, man.
Not kind, yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is. And so, but if to kind of run that parallel to the, to your physical fitness and your financial fitness is, all right, well, if you eat too much, you're going to put some weight on. If you spend too much, you're going to have less in the bank. So, there are a lot of parallels here, so if you're going to get physically fit, you're probably also going to get financially fit. And sometimes you have to invest in your health, right? You got to pay for a gym membership or buy a Peloton or something like that. We bought one of those tonal machines that's at home. My wife likes to do things at home. She's not a big gym person. So, we invested some money into that to keep her health. And that's just part of it. So, that's one of her goals is to work on her physical fitness. And then also as we look at our personal finances, right, we set goals as well too. We take care and help people achieve their goals as well. Thankfully, the stock market in 2023 was very rewarding. Right there at the end of the year, it spread out across the economic landscape. It wasn't just 7 big technology companies. It was dividend paying stocks. It ended up some real estate holdings came back in value as well. And, a lot of the, we'll look into 2024 is to see, all right, is this going to continue? Are interest rates going to come down, open up things for the housing market? Okay? It means people buy washers and dryers. So, there's a lot of people are talking about, this ever-ending recession talk that is yet to happen despite 11 interest rate increases. They're probably not going to go into a recession if they're cutting interest rates, right?
Yeah.
That certainly can help fuel economic recovery.
And Chris, that was a big distinction between the beginning of last year and the beginning of this year, is that the beginning of last year, all we heard was the coming recession. They're raising interest rates. They raised interest rates. And now we are going to see the downturn as a result, which really, as far as the stock market goes, didn't ever come to fruition, thankfully. And now we're hearing, well, the Fed has likely achieved their intended soft landing, and maybe we can avoid that recession that everybody thought was imminent. how much weight, how much credence do you give these kind of predictions of things that are to come in the stock market and in the economy?
Well, I guess, to be totally upfront, I think, I was on that recession side of things. You look back at history and, when they do something they've never done before, there's an economic shock to that. But, the resiliency of the U.S. economy has been pretty remarkable. Through despite all those interest rate increases. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't some pain yet to come, right? They raise rates and that economic damage sometimes can take some time to pan out. And I just had a client in the other day that sells some things to some very big corporations, and he says they're buying nothing right now, big processors and whatnot. And so then while he was in the office, I reached out to a client I have down in the Atlanta area and asked him. He sells forklifts, and I said, "Hey, what you seeing right now?" He's like, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. It's, kind of maintaining the status quo. So, it's funny in the world that I live in, we can touch bases across many different, I get a lot of sound information comes from clients in different industries there to help kind of gauge some of those opinions. But, I was of the opinion here, people were talking about, well, I think people are going to pull back their spending. I'm like, look, if they didn't pull back their spending leading up to the Christmas season, they sure as heck are not going to stop spending during. They're not going to give their kids and grandkids an awful Christmas. They may pay the freight here after going into 2024, but they weren't going to do that around the holidays. And that one, I knew dividend stocks and whatnot had a good chance of recovering in the fourth quarter as well, despite the countless number of emails that we get contrary to that.
Yeah.
Got to throw that in there.
Yeah, well, there was some concern as it seemed like just one sector or just a small handful of stocks led the way of the recovery. I think I read articles, we talked about it on the program. You probably sent me a handful of those articles, Chris, saying it was really 7 to 10 stocks for a majority of the year that led the market rebound. Those were the same stocks, by the way, that had the worst performance, it seemed, in 2022. So everything being cyclical, those dividend producing stocks, those value stocks, the ones that sort of had a very boring first half of 2023 seemed to end the year much stronger. Chris, getting back from those kind of things, though, I want to talk a little bit more about what people do, what people think about, what people need to be targeting to achieve this time of year in order to meet those goals for the year to come and the years to come. But I do want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that a big part of achieving your financial goals is having that plan in place, having a true written financial plan that brings all of the different pieces of the puzzle together. When and how are you going to use your accounts? Which ones do you use first, second, last? How do you know that you're doing enough in your 401k? What does that balance mean for the income that you can generate into and through retirement? How much risk should you be taking? How much are you paying in fees? How can you minimize and reduce taxes? How can you maximize Social Security? All of these things are what the plan consists of. The game plan for retirement that Chris McIntire helps his clients put together each and every day there at the office at McIntire Retirement Services. If you'd like to take advantage of the opportunity to get your plan put together, pick up the phone and give a call. 800-868-1194 is the number to call. 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, or you can go online, McIntyreRetirementServices.com, McIntyreRetirementServices.com. They've got a great website with lots of resources, or you can also go on YouTube. The viewership there, Chris, is getting up there. You are catching popularity and views and subscribers. It's a great thing to see that people are taking interest in the financial knowledge and the tips that you provide here on the program each and every week. So great resources there that you can go and watch previous editions of the program, or even short minute-long highlights of certain topics that you can search, ladies and gentlemen. So McIntyreRetirementServices.com or YouTube at McIntyre Retirement Services. All great resources there. But Chris, what are some of the things now that the holidays are getting behind us that people are needing to consider or think about this time of year? I guess taxes is the next big financial milestone to come at us, right?
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, I'm waiting on the 1099s to come out in sometime in February, typically. And we'll get into that. That's something that's more administrative for the girls at the office. I don't do a whole lot of, the our tax planning. A lot of the things that we do would be the Roth conversions there in the fourth quarter, typically of the year. So it's more of a, administrative thing for the girls at the office. People making a contribution, for example, into an IRA or a Roth IRA by April 15th, or funding their health.
For last year, by the way, right? That's
Yeah.
one of those one kind of caveat things that we can do now that impacts us on last year's taxes that could be beneficial, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can do some 2023 tax planning in 2024 when it comes to the contributions to IRAs, Roth IRAs, or a health savings account. If you're going to do a conversion, that will be on the 2024 tax year, right? A contribution and conversion are two different things. We've talked about that for years here, but Peter, when we talk, back on that goal setting. I think most people here are pretty educated that listen to us and whatnot, and know that, look, if that goal's not written down, and we talk about this in the office when, we're doing our planning sessions for the next year. And now we have Jason and Michelle, and it's like, okay, expanding the roles and who's doing what, it's like, look, we write these things down. And then when we get back together, then we can review what we had written down in the meeting before. Okay, what progress was made? What other decisions do we need to do? So writing things down is very important, being able to keep a track record of it. And, I'm a big believer on that. And the goals need to be yours as well. If your goal is to help your grandchildren, graduate high school or something, that's obtained. They have that really falls on the grandchild for that example. Financial goals are typically going to be for you. And it could be, paying off credit cards, right? We're just coming out of the Christmas season. We're getting the bills here, and we try to earn some airline miles as well. So we rack up some points there at the end of the year also, and going to take a trip over to Ireland and Scotland here in 2024, something we've always wanted to do. And,
Nice.
planning financially, that was a goal. Okay. So Robin takes her Social Security check she gets and has put that into bank account for about 16 months. So that's that goal was for our travel money. And, that's nice because we don't miss that money any other place. Didn't have to pull it out of a checking account. So that's an example of a goal.
And Chris, as you are talking with clients, number one, putting that written plan together, the game plan for retirement that you put together, that is the written list of items to achieve. You were talking about you have to write down your goals. That's, again, part of the plan, not knowing just where we are at, which is important, but what we want to do and get to. And as you are doing that, are you discussing kind of bucket list type of items that your clients want to achieve? If they've got the goal for an Ireland trip, or a Hawaii or Australia or wherever abouts, or if they've got some big ticket things that they want to do, buy a beach or mountain house or a lake house or something like that, that you are specifically discussing those kind of items as well?
Yes, and when we, kind of have our meetings, and now, when you've had a year in the markets like 2023, and clients have made money, versus 2022, where stocks went down, bonds went down, real estate went down. A lot of people with investments suffered losses. Now that they have investments that have some gains, that, now the conversation comes into play. It's like, look, do you need to buy the car now? So, accounts up in value. You could pull off some of the earnings and buy the car if you wanted to, or take the trip, whatever it is there, Peter. Make the analogy any way it fits for the specific client you're talking to. Whereas, hey, in 2022, when the market fell significantly, maybe they put that trip on hold, for example, and said, yeah, we'll take it, once things recover here. And a lot of times, I'm speaking rhetorically. We obviously have lots of clients with safe money so that they continue to do the things. But for those on the outside listening in, that's why you have a safe money strategy. So you don't have to put your goals on hold, and because of what, what happens on what they talk about on CNBC all day, which is typically individual stocks, and in companies along those avenues, right? That's Fox Business, CNBC, even the Bloomberg channel. They'll talk about individual stocks and bonds. They don't really get into the entire retirement landscape. And where they're looking at different income elements outside and, real estate funds and annuities and CDs and things like that. They're stock talkers.
But Chris, when you mentioned the safe money strategy for the income in retirement, this really is the detailed planning ahead that it takes to survive some of those downturns with confidence. We really never know when we're going to see those larger bear markets or recessions or down times in the market, but we do know that liquidating funds to create the income when we go through them is very different than our working career and really can impact the trajectory of our retirement if we don't have that safe money strategy kind of in place and ready and prepared for those times.
Yeah, and absolutely, and every year you're dealing with somebody who has just retired and now they've got to take that nest egg and take money out of it where for 30 years they were putting money into it. And that's a heck of a transition, and especially when like in somebody retires in 2021 and then in 2022 they're starting to pull money out of their investment portfolio and watching what happens. I mean, that's an emotional one there for sure. And thankfully, if you set up, a plan A and a plan B, and if plan A's underwater for the time being, then you can go back on to plan A or plan B and take some pressure off the portfolio, right? Because the last thing a lot of folks want to do is when a portfolio is beat up is start drawing out of it, more than they had anticipated. And in some cases, it's hard to do that because some people, might have got forced into a retirement early. Okay. And it is what it is. And, but again, the markets recover nicely, and 2023 is a pretty good example of that. And like you said, Peter, for 9 months, it was simply driven by about 10 tech stocks. Okay. 10 massive, huge companies. Okay. And finally, now we're spreading out and it's a little bit, getting broader based out there, if you will. Small companies, medium sized, large value, large dividend payers, utility companies, especially. Yep.
Again, we are talking with Chris McIntire, president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services, ladies and gentlemen. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, retirement accounts, investment accounts, brokerage accounts, what to do with them, how to make the most of them, how to get the most into them, what are your opportunities. These are all things that he helps his clients better understand, discuss, identify those opportunities, make the most of your money. If that is a goal for you in the year and the years to come, then pick up the phone and give a call, because great information here on the air with Chris as always, but general in nature. If you would like specific direction, if you would like your individual custom plan, a written plan for retirement, your game plan for retirement, that is available there at McIntire Retirement Services. He makes the offer to put that together with you. No cost, no obligation. Just give a phone call to get the conversation started. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Chris, briefly, we mentioned taxes are a big thing that people think about this time of year. Now, when you are planning, you're looking years ahead for taxes. Particularly, this may be a good opportunity to be more proactive with taxes, because we do know that in just a couple years, the tax code changes. So we know what it is today. We know what limits and tax brackets look like, what the rates are, and according to law that is on the books, it is lower right now than it is going to be in just a couple short years. January 1st, 2026. Tax laws and rates change and very well could, if nothing else is done, go up on us, right?
Yeah, without question there. Yeah, and those would be like, I guess we'll call them the Trump tax cuts. He was the president and they cut taxes there, and those were for 10 years. And then those will sunset in starting the beginning of 2026. So the 12% bracket goes back to 15, the 22 goes to 25, and those are the ones that are going to affect most of the retirees. And who knows what will happen? They could certainly extend them, right? Congress gets along so well, gets so many things done for the betterment of America these days. And I think they said in 2023, this Congress passed the least amount of legislation, and which sometimes is a good thing. I mean, they set up more rules and regulations, but I'll jump off that horse here for a minute. And again, so I would say that, like Peter says, folks, is, your Roth conversion strategies here, 2024 and 2025 are going to be really big years. We're going to have a presidential election next year. We don't know who's going to control the House, who's going to be in the White House, and what the Senate's going to look like. Probably and who knows, and certainly not here to make any predictions. And a lot of people say, what happens when we have a presidential cycle? It's not really that bad for the market typically,
Mhm.
because the president doesn't take charge until the following year, in January, months down the road, and probably who is in control of Congress has more impact on that, because the House of Representatives is the wallet, the House Budget Committee. So a lot of the things that can happen in the House are probably more important sometimes than what happens in the presidency. Aside 8 million illegal immigrants coming in this year.
Chris, you mentioned Roth conversions. Now, knowing what we know about the tax code, about the tax rates, and you mentioned those increases, 12 to 15% is not a 3% tax increase. That is a 25% tax increase. The 22 to 25, that's again not a 3% tax increase. That is a 12% tax increase. So you're looking at what, 16 to 18% tax increase across the first $150,000 of income or so. So pretty substantial tax increase. Knowing what
Yeah.
we know, that those rates are going to be going up. I know a lot of conversations are happening in your office about Roth conversions. Now, is there a time to plan and execute on these? And in other words, do we want to do that Roth conversion as close to the first of the year, or maybe is that a conversation to have now to plan for later in the year?
Well, yeah, and it's a conversation around probably when you're going to do your tax filing and have your meeting with your CPA, because a lot of times they're going to run the projections for you. And and let's be honest, once 1099 start hitting between, call it February 1st and April 15th, CPAs are just incredibly busy. So, we will do more Roth conversions later in the year versus earlier in the year, because later in the year, how much income you've already had coming in. Maybe you had an emergency and you had to bail out a family member and had to take 50 grand out of your IRA, even if it was just temporarily. If you can do that, if you had to do that during the early part of the year, all right, that may impact what you can do later in the year. Whereas if you get into September, October, and November, they'll say, okay, well, now we know where our income's going to be, and we can make it between now and January 1st into the next tax year. So now we can take that 50,000 and convert it into a Roth IRA this year, because our CPA said that was the amount that would keep us in, say, the 12% tax bracket. And that's a pretty common analogy that we utilize. And but it doesn't mean you don't do your planning right now and say, hey, okay, hey, what's our big purchases up and coming, and do we pay for something, half of it this year and half of it next year, for example? We have a lot of folks that buy a house, for example, and they have more than enough money in their IRA to pay for it. But that's a taxable event when you do that. So, like, do you pay for that house for 5 years, for example, and pay less taxes? You might pay a little more interest on the loan, on the mortgage, but you'll pay a lot less in taxes. So, a lot of different strategies to think about. And here's an important one. I'm even shaking my pen for those of you watching on the podcast. You know, the United States is $33 trillion in debt. Okay? We're having hard time financing some of that debt. Investors around the globe want to be paid more money because they're starting to question the ability to pay that back. So interest rates on some of that deficit, those long-term rates could go up. So, how else does the US government pay its debts? They collect taxes to do that. Okay. So you certainly could say, well, we're going to raise taxes to start putting some money down on this deficit, for example, because, once government digs a hole, they're not very good at filling it back in correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're seeing that. They seem to be able to spend money a whole lot easier than they can cut that spending, or even raise the money that they are spending. But we don't live our individual lives that way. We cannot sustainably for too long. So that's why a lot of people, Chris, are making these resolutions and trying to improve their outlook for the year ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, those conversations about tax management into and throughout your retirement, how to control your tax bill. Chris has some very sophisticated software. He can crunch your numbers, your account balances, your acceptable projection for a rate of return, show you side by side what the tax bill could be or what you could manage it to be. That alone is very eye-opening. That can be several hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of your retirement. And by the way, in your legacy, in your inheritance. I know it's not everybody's goal to leave the kids richer than they could imagine. That is not a selfish notion, but we don't want Uncle Sam to be our largest beneficiary either. And we can manage to make our retirement accounts go to those that we would rather have those dollars and care more about than the IRS. And those are conversations that Chris McIntire has in his office each and every day. That's how he helps to plan effectively for your financial future. That is part of the game plan for retirement. If you'd like to get together, have those conversations, see those numbers side by side, just pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. And again, Chris, we want to make SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. Those are the ways that we will achieve those goals. Have them written down in writing. That is what the game plan for retirement is all about. And people are making goals in a number of areas, whether it's fitness or education or spiritual or family, career. Financial is a big one, and you're having these conversations on an ongoing basis each and every day, regardless of the time of the year. But this is a big time of year when people want to review things and get that plan put together.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. And, great way to start the year off, set some goals. I'm going to get in a better physical shape. I'm going to get in, better financial shape, right? Which, a lot of times, if you're getting yourself in better physical shape, that's going to help your finances as well. If you can lower your, blood sugar, diabetes, things along those lines, all that stuff, so important.
Health really is wealth.
Yeah, it really is. I'd much rather be healthy and poor than rich and sick, no question about it. We see all different types of things and, try to encourage that within our clients. A walk a day. It doesn't mean you got to become Arnold Schwarzenegger. Look at me, for example, but you get a good dopamine release, and that makes you feel good, and it's a lot better than maybe it isn't better than 4 glasses of wine based on opinion, but since I don't drink it, I'm gonna go to the gym and get a little dopamine release, and just makes you feel good. It's good for your body, and take good quality vitamins and supplements. Not here to harp on all that. That's just as important as picking the right stock. So it really is, guys. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate the time, the reminders, Chris, the conversation about our money, about the financial economic world, about the market, the status, the strength, the downturns, the upturns, where things are going, and then having that plan in place to help us navigate regardless of those conditions to come. But there are certain things that we know about the financial future, ladies and gentlemen, and we can certainly plan and prepare for those proactively. Chris helps his clients deal with both the known and the potential or the unknown, and having that plan in place, that's going to set you on a better path and trajectory to help you achieve and accomplish your important goals in life and with your money. So pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire Retirement Services, the entire team over there. Looking forward to hearing from you, helping to put that plan together in any way they can. Give them a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, once again, always a pleasure, and thanks for the helpful conversation and the reminders of what is important in our financial and retirement and investment planning.
Yep, sounds good, buddy. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe out there, and let's make 2024 a great year. Thank you.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.